All right, so today we're going to dive into a passage from the Sermon on the Mount that, most of us feel like we've got a pretty good handle on. But what if I told you that hiding in plain sight is one single idea that connects all the dots in a way you've maybe never seen before? I promise you, once you see it, it changes everything.
So Jesus kicks off chapter 6 with this really powerful warning, and right away he lays out the core tension for this whole section, this conflict between a righteousness that's done for public applause and a righteousness that's practiced for an audience of one.
And he immediately takes that warning and applies it to what were, back then, considered the three pillars of spiritual practice: giving to the needy, prayer, and fasting. These three actions, they're going to be the framework for everything he says next.
Now, it's super easy to read this and just think, okay, I get it. Don't be a show-off. Simple enough. But there's a much deeper connection going on here, a secret clue that I think unlocks the entire sermon. So what is it? What's the secret that so many of us have been missing?
Okay, let's start digging. Our first clue is actually hiding in plain sight, inside a single word that Jesus uses over and over again. And it's a word we think we know, but its original meaning completely changes the picture.
When Jesus warns against being like the hypocrites, he's not just talking about being two-faced. In his time, a hypocrite was literally a Greek stage actor. Their entire job was to perform. They would sound trumpets to announce their arrival on stage, and they would literally paint their faces with these masks of emotion so the crowd in the back could see. Their whole goal was getting applause.
So when you get that picture in your head, the contrast Jesus is drawing just pops, doesn't it? On one side, you have the stage actor performing loudly and publicly, all for the applause of a crowd. But Jesus calls his disciples to a totally different kind of practice, one that's private, that's secret, where the audience isn't a crowd at all but the Father himself. The motivations could not be more different.
Now, this is where it gets really, really interesting. Jesus isn't actually starting a new topic here in chapter 6. He's continuing a powerful argument that he began all the way back in chapter 5. The connection has been there the entire time, just waiting for us to see it.
And the bridge between these two chapters, the key that links it all together, well, it all comes down to a single word that Jesus repeats over and over again.
And that word is reward. Now, I know it sounds simple, but once you start tracking how Jesus uses this idea of reward, you can trace his argument seamlessly from the end of chapter 5 right into the beginning of chapter 6. It's the connecting thread.
Okay, let's just trace the flow here. First, in chapter 5, Jesus says our righteousness has to exceed the Pharisees. Then, just a little bit later, he asks, if you only love those who love you back, what reward is there in that? And then, he carries that exact same logic right into chapter 6, warning that if you perform your righteousness for others, you'll have no reward from your Father. See, it's one continuous thought about what true reward really is.
And this brings us right to the heart of the whole sermon. When Jesus says our righteousness must exceed the Pharisees, he's not asking for more religious stuff. He isn't just setting a higher bar for performance. No, he's calling for a fundamentally different kind of righteousness, one that flows from a transformed heart.
The righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees was all about the outside, a performance that other people could see and measure and applaud. But Jesus just flips that completely on its head. He shifts the focus entirely inward, to the heart. It's not about the quantity of your deeds anymore. It's all about the quality of your motive.
And this whole idea of an internal transformation wasn't something Jesus just invented. It was actually the fulfillment of these ancient promises. The prophets Jeremiah and Ezekiel both talked about a day when God himself would give his people a new heart, writing his law not on stone tablets, but right on their very beings. The entire Sermon on the Mount is kind of based on the assumption that this divine heart surgery is now possible.
So all of this leads to the crucial question, why? Why all this emphasis on doing things in secret? Why give, pray, and fast away from the public eye? The answer is the final piece of our puzzle, and it reveals the deepest purpose of Jesus' entire teaching here.
This phrase, which gets repeated for giving, for praying, and for fasting, holds the key. Notice the focus isn't just on our secret actions, but on the one who is in secret, our Father.
And this right here brilliantly illustrates the final connection. We are called to act in private because we're imitating our Father, who is unseen. He's the hidden force who blesses everyone, the just and the unjust, not for applause, but out of pure love. Our private acts of righteousness are meant to mirror his unseen, generous character. The goal is to be like him, a chip off the old block.
So you see, these teachings are so much more than just a new list of rules. Every single command is an invitation to understand the very heart of the Father. By acting as He acts, unseen, generous, motivated by love, we come to know Him more deeply and reflect His character to the world.
I mean, that just reframes everything, doesn't it? What if the Sermon on the Mount isn't a list of impossible standards designed to stress us out, but a beautiful invitation? An invitation to stop performing for the crowd and start imitating our Father, becoming more like Him in the process. What would change for you if you started to see it that way?